Was there ever a secret passageway or secret room at your home, school or workplace? Did you ever find it? If so, what was there? I was a maintenance guy custodian for a high school. And my shift started about an hour before school let out and ended around 11:30 at night. I couldn't clean anything while students were in my areas. So I would go to the storage closet and climb up the ladder to ventilation room. It was the area you needed to go to replace air filters. The room itself used to be 14 meetings for basketball games before renovations. So it was huge. Also near the IT room. So it had Wi-Fi. Best part was that someone had pulled up a chair from the auditorium and put it in a space around the corner. So I would go up there for an hour if I had nothing to do. Chill in a comfy chair and browse Reddit. Got even better when I found a good tennis ball. Would play wall ball in this giant cement room. My high school had a vast network of tunnels starting under the stage. Found the 6 couch, 2 bongs, 40 years worth of set pieces and the original plans for a highway that cuts through my town. Till, literally everyone had tunnels under their high school. And I bet we all thought our respective schools were unique for it. Mayo. My grandparents had a built-in bookshelf that could be pulled out of the wall to reveal a small space, about enough to fit 3 skinny people in. I never knew about it until a game of adult hide and seek and my uncle hid there. And my grandfather scolded him for revealing it. My grandparents had something like that under some stairs. My grandfather told me that in the late 40s and 50s bomb shelters were a big deal. Even crappy little cutouts like this with no protection at all were put into houses. Maybe that was the thinking with this. There was a tile in our kitchen that you could lift up and there was a hole down to the laundry room in the basement. We usually just used it to talk to anyone that was down there. Or a laundry chute if we were too lazy to go downstairs. I had a friend in college from an area that was just over the Mason-Dixon line. She lived in a very old house. And the kitchen floor had a section that could open up with a little winding stairway leading down to a hidden room. Turns out that her house used to be a pretty major stop on the Underground Railroad. Because it was so close to the border of a slave state. Plenty of escaped slaves would come through there and hide out for a while. Her parents were using it as a wine cellar. Though. I used to live in suburban Detroit where people had immense fear of breaking and enterings. So, when we moved into our new house, the landlord showed us the special cabinet. One of the cabinets in the office room off the living room was actually a passageway tiny to a small room with some water bottles, gas masks, other important survival things. It had room for about 2 or 3 people. Needless to say, we never used it. This is more of a family legend. But here it goes. Everyone always heard that my great-grandma had built a secret room in her farm somewhere. No one knew where it was or what she kept in there. But the speculation was that it was gold as she always saved money. Bought gold. And there was no trace of it. She died without telling anyone. Or so we thought. However, an aunt started going to the old ranch an awful lot in the months following her death. She went repeatedly and then suddenly stopped. About a year later, a different family member found a will with the location to the secret room. A small 2 feet crevice with a lock. Many members of the family went together to prevent foul play, but found that the lock was broken and the small room empty. Looking back at the clues, that first aunt suspiciously had money to buy herself property and businesses in the times following the death. Although she never admitted to it, most of the family is convinced that great-grandma had a stash of gold. The aunt found it and hoarded it. No one knows for sure though. Edit, the eyes idea sounds great guys. Except this was decades ago in Mexico. Sort of. I used to live in a big old house in the mountains of California. When I was 8, I was rustling around in some big bushes up against the side of the house and found a boxy structure with a heavy door. To the left of the door, someone had scrawled "The Lost World" and drew the Jurassic Park logo. As a Jurassic Park fan and budding young buccaneer, this intrigued me. Did this door lead to some kind of lost world? Was it hiding a fabulous secret? I spent 3 years trying to find out. But the door was always shut fast and locked with a big brass padlock. My schemes to invade, including digging under it from beneath the front porch, were failures. Finally, not long before we moved, I found the door unlocked and ajar. Flush with success, I crept inside the well house. A cramped, stuffy little room containing only the well pump, spider webs, and a smaller door to the space under the house. It was anticlimactic, but it did give me 3 years of childish fancy. It wasn't really that secret, but as a child it felt like it was. In my friend's house, what looked like a bunk bed actually had a door where the bottom bunk was, which led to a secret toy room. I loved it in there. IKR. I was just about to post something, but then I realized that it's just so generic. I guess the wonder of exploration we have as children doesn't carry on as we get older. My house had a secret room in the attic. It's a really old house and the former owner was a pretty wealthy banker. The room was used as an opium den. And when the stock market crashed, he hung himself in there. I used to live in a very large house in northern Ontario, Canada, and there was a closet in the front hallway that if you entered you could make your way through and come out in the bedroom on the other side. It was like a mini hallway passage between the walls from the front closet to the bedroom closest. Me, my siblings and my pets got many hours of fun out of it. One job I used to work at was on the 10th floor of an office building. But due to fire safety rules they were limited in their occupancy permit to about half of what they needed. So they literally built a wall in the hallway which cut the place in half. And then added with a hutch-sized door on this new wall that they then put a photocopy machine in front of. This hid half the company behind this macro door that hopefully the fire marshal would not discover. Edit, imgur.com. Behold. The power of cloud storage delivers a picture from 2005. A junior high school that I used to go to for language classes had a hallway at a corner of the building which was completely dark. The hall led to a stairwell which was dark as well. The teachers always used to tell the students to never go upstairs. So naturally we formed raiding parties to find out what was upstairs. IDKY, but you'd think it would have been easy to get a bunch of kids to run through a hallway and up some stairs. But there were a lot of failed attempts because the parties would fall apart because teachers came to stop us or kids would run back as soon as they got to the stairs cause they were scared shitless. Anyways, it was after quite some time before we actually managed to reach the top of the stairs, and what we saw up there reinforced the rumor that that place was haunted. Basically you walk up these steps in complete darkness and you are met with a bright painting of a clown or something at the top. Let's just say there were no more attempts to explore further the upstairs anymore after that day. At my undergrad college, there was a series of what were called steam tunnels. Supposedly in the earlier history of the college, they were used to allow students to pass between buildings during times of gnarly winter weather. But they had been sealed off long before I got there. Unless you knew how to get in. Most students thought they were a myth. The few of us, and judging by the number of people I saw down there probably were less than 100 out of 5,000 students who knew they really did exist, who did found an ice haven for whatever. Makes sense that they were old, because they only went between the 3 oldest buildings on campus. They were just really wide tunnels with high ceilings that did in fact carry steam pipes. So they were warm. There were some blind offshoots, but mostly they were just nice wide thoroughfares that were fun to explore. Edit, let the guessing end. Carnegie Mellon U. My parents' old house in Kent, southern England, had a cellar that they filled in with rubble from the renovation work and regretted doing ever after. The house wasn't wildly old, a bit of it was 17th century, some 18th. But there had certainly been a dwelling on that site for a long time. Anyway, there was a tunnel heading out from the cellar, angled so it pointed directly at the church, which was on the other side of the road, and maybe 100 yards away. The church is Norman, late 11th century. Almost certainly a smuggler's tunnel. Village vicars and parsons were frequently part of the smuggling gangs in the 18th century. because it was not quite the done thing to search a church. And the 18th century saw a big upsurge in smuggling, 4 and 20 ponies. Trotting through the dark. Brandy for the parson. Baccy for the clerk. As Kipling put it. I imagine the tunnel's still there. Not a secret room. But one time I was playing in my yard. Crawling around a hedge for some reason. I noticed a weird parting in the hedges. The branches were kind of woven in front of something. I looked closer. Behind the woven branches there was a perfectly cut little arch, just the right size for a 5-year-old kid to duck through. What was this? A secret garden? A path to Oz? I went in further and found a cleared out circle in the middle of the tall hedges, with some sort of leafy plants growing in the center. Totally inaccessible from anywhere but the small tunnel. I had found my dad's pot plants. Found a secret dumbwaiter on the 3rd floor of my high school. It was just big enough for a person to fit in. I got inside and took it down to the 2nd floor where I found the door to the outside was boarded up but the other side was a guidance counselor's office. I banged on the board and made ghost sounds, then hauled back up to the 3rd floor and ran away. If it's an old building, most of these secret tunnels will have asbestos down there. Justin, for your information. Source: I'm a custodian. There are apparently some huge ass tunnels underneath my old high school. The entryway was a trapdoor underneath the auditorium stage. It had wooden panels you could pry off if for some reason you wanted to venture into the dust dimension. Well, the techies, light and sound guys and girls for the school musicals, etc., mounted a camera on a remote controlled car and sent it down there. Basically endless darkness. After descending 10 feet or so, this drop would break your ankle. They moved down a horizontal corridor for a bit and apparently there was just a sudden drop that they had no idea how far went down. No pivot control on the camera. The car was attached to a string so they pulled it back up. No one seems to have any idea about the tunnels. Obviously we surmise they are connected to the other schools in the area. But they are not meant for human travel. I doubt there's anything sinister about them, but it was fun to entertain the imagination. In high school I hated gym class. Our strength training equipment was set up on the out of use stage in the gym. One day we noticed that there was a panel kicked out of the door that led to the stage left area. We could just barely squeeze through the hole. So we went exploring. It was mostly storage. But then we noticed that there was a ladder leading up to a hatch. We went up there and it was all the outdoor ed equipment from a now defunct program, snowshoes and stuff. But more importantly, there were windows overseeing the entire gym. So we ended up with a little hideout where we could hide through the entire class and then watch for the teacher coming to check on our group and sneak back down when she came in so she wouldn't notice our absence. My elementary school had a trapdoor-like thing covered by carpet, but you know it was there and you could tell it was hollow every time you would step on it. Of course. His kids made up dozens of rumors about it. That's where the teachers put you when you get detention. A live fox, school's mascot, lives under there and will eat you. Teachers sleep there, etc. I got to go back into the school a few years later right before it got torn down and asked a janitor about it. He opened the door and it turned out to be a gone tornado shelter. It had enough room for the 300 kids teachers to hide down there and a little pantry. But not much else. At my high school, there was a culvert pipe just large enough to crawl through with our backs hunched. We knew that it went as far as the campus pond and about 15 minutes in, we had to squeeze to the side to avoid the steam pipes. Being stupid kids, we decided to keep going. We walked through that culvert, backs hunched, for 2 hours. Boy, was that worth it. We made it into town and we could see people walking over us through the irrigation grates. Fit 15 minutes. We'd grab the grate every time someone walked past, shake it, and yell incoherently, effectively scaring the living shit out of them. Best day ever. I went to school not far from a huge cathedral. That place was full of secret passages on all levels. Especially if you could pry doors open like my friend Dave. You could go hang out on different levels of the roof too. I went back years later and it was all locked up. They caught into us. I will always remember those days of feeling like a spy. I worked at our school in the summer and in the basement was a sealed door that had obviously been closed for decades. One day, me and some other menial workers spent half a day prying it open. It was amazing. It appeared to be living quarters complete with an old gas stove and bathroom. It was nasty and decayed and we found papers from the early 40s, so figured that was about when it was sealed. There was an old desk and bed, all covered with mold and crap. But there's more. There was a tunnel that ran the full length of the school with other doors. But they were bricked up. At the far end was a large rifle gun range with targets still hanging. There were also old mats and gonads. Gym storage. There were a few other empty rooms which probably housed records or something. It was an amazing day. This was late 70s and not sure if anyone has gone in since. I used to go to college in a really old converted abbey. In the library there was a bookcase with hinges that could be opened up, revealing a door behind it. Behind the door there is a steep, old stone spiral staircase which led up to an office. Apparently one of the older residents used it to sneak to his mistress's, a servant, room so his wife didn't find out. My family always liked secret passages. My mom's house has a bookshelf in the wall that can be pulled out to reveal a back staircase to the guest wing. My grandfather's house is full of false panels. Some have games or blankets. Some have a safe. Or gum. Or just things he happened to drop in and forget. All of his desks have pieces of molding or panels that slide out and reveal little hideaways. It's freaky. If you push in the right spot, the wall might just click open. Sometimes I feel like I'm going to have one of those Scooby-Doo moments where you lean on a wall and disappear. There's an old closing mall by old high school that we all used to hang out at when we were bored. We would go into the employees only area, which would be a maze outline of all the stores where I guess they keep their supplies and such for 3 stories. One day we found a door with a master lock that wasn't closed. We went inside and found a chain of stores that we never knew were there. They had covered up the entrance to the store with a wall on the outside, so we never knew it existed. This one room was full of mirrors and it was pretty cool. Then we found a staircase, so we did the obvious thing and went down. We found a ducking pool in the basement of the mall. We found all holiday decorations that they use, like the big Christmas tree and Easter setup they use. The pool was also full of broken light bulbs. So my one friend was sitting on the edge of the pool when he somehow slipped and fell into the pool of broken glass. He was a bit cut up, but we all started laughing. On the way out, as we went back through the mirror room, we saw a sign covered in dust on the wall. I brushed it off to see what it said and it read something like warning, asbestos. Masks required in this area. After that we only went back a few times. Not really a home or school, but there is a bar in New York City called PDT. Please don't tell. You walk down a set of stairs from the outside into a hot dog joint. Inside the hot dog restaurant, there is an old 1930s style phone booth. When you dial a specific number on the phone, someone opens a trapdoor on the other side, gaining you entry to speakeasy style bar. It was pretty cool.